Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Cal OES campus cohort meeting. This is our June meeting. Sorry, let me get my controls right. There we go. So we have our agenda today. I wanted to let you all know about Dana Flightman. She was the speaker that we had for our stalking awareness and campus summer session that was 2 weeks ago. So she let me know that she is going to be traveling to Southern California at the end of July. So if anyone is interested in doing an in-person training, I think she said that the only requirement is that there's a certain number of people, and it wasn't very many. It was like 10 or something like that. So if you're interested in hosting a session on your campus for staff and employees and faculty, please feel free to reach out to her. Ashley's going to drop her info in the chat and the website on the chat as well. It's stalkingawareness.org, but she'll drop that link in the chat for you all. So again, if you're interested, please reach out to Dana. She's going to be here anyway. I think she's doing a session in Bakersfield. So she'll be in this area, and I think she's more than happy to extend a Southern California trip.
Priscilla, we may be able to host a session, invite other schools too. We've done that in the past with our regional Title IX coordinators. So I would really like to do that too. And then the numbers get a little higher.
Yeah, absolutely. She said that we could do something like that as well if we had like a larger group that would be interested. So yeah, if you reach out to her and it works out, let us know, and we'll let the rest of our campuses know. And if you're open to it, we can also advertise it in like our and some of our weekly blasts and stuff, so that we can open it to other campuses that aren't necessarily like in this grant as well. So that would be super cool. And then today, just for the rest of our agenda, we're going to do our icebreaker like normal. We are going to review the schedule, go over some events, and then we have some guest speakers today. So we have Chris from National Survivor Network and Linda from the North Carolina Coalition Against Sexual Assault, and they will be talking to us. We sent it out last time, but the Campus Human Trafficking Toolkit. So they'll be going over that a little more in depth, and then they'll give you a brief overview of the campus culture change through horticulture, a holistic approach to sexual violence prevention and response. So we shared the toolkit last time, but they're going to talk about that more in depth today. So that's really exciting. Sorry, my controls are all wonky today. Your hosts, Ashley and I, you all know us. We'll give more of an intro when we do our icebreakers, but I'm the program coordinator here. My pronouns are she, her. And Ashley's the director of prevention, also she, her pronouns. But we will go into the icebreaker where we can do a little more of an intro. So for our icebreaker today, if you could tell us your name, your pronouns, the campus that you work with, and for the icebreaker, what is one of your most controversial opinions? So nothing political, please. I think we all have those controversial opinions, and probably a lot of us are on the same page with that. But, you know, non-political stuff, like, are you a Pepsi over Coke person? Do you like really brown bananas and no one can understand that? So if anyone wants to go ahead and start us out, I'll open the floor.
I guess I can start.
Oh yes, go for it.
Okay. I guess my controversial opinion would be the book is always better than the movie. And I'm sticking with it. And I'm Paula Knope. I'm the administrator at Caltech. She, her, and I do hope we can host the speaker here and others can join us. And I'll send it to Jordan.
Oh, Jordan's microphone is not working. It looks like you're highlighted, but we still can't hear you. So Jordan, if you want to answer yours in the chat, and then Paula, if you want to send it to someone else.
How about Chris?
Hi. So Chris, my pronouns are they, them. I am with the National Survivor Network, which is a program of the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking. And one of my most controversial opinions is that excessively weird glasses are a bizarre hipster habit. And I'm going to pass it to Alexis.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Alexis. I use pronouns she, her, and I am at Cal State Northridge. I'm one of the campus care advocates. I pretty much focus really like on the clinical side. So I do all the therapy. And one of my I have a few when it comes to foods. Actually, I'm gonna give two because I don't know. I don't like cinnamon, which is super weird for most people, and I don't eat donuts. I don't know why. I don't like donuts, and everyone thinks I'm super weird for that. Just never liked them. Let me see. I can pass it over to Gabby.
Good morning, everyone. Gabby Orozco. I'm with East Los Angeles Women's Center. I'm the campus advocate for East LA College and Rio Hondo College. My most controversial opinion. Dogs are better than cats. I'm gonna say it. And I will popcorn to Cindy. Or Sydney Casey. Sorry about that.
Oh no, I was just checking if there was a Cindy in the group. But hi all, I'm Sydney from Sonoma State up north. I am one of the confidential advocates up there. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I feel like I have a few controversial opinions, but I guess I'm gonna go with I don't think Star Wars is good. And I think maybe that's because I didn't see it as a kid. I saw it later in life, but I watched it and I just cannot, I fall asleep in it. So I know that's very controversial. I haven't seen Star Trek. I need to watch Star Trek.
Sydney, this is Tracy. Uh-oh, I worked for Lucas. In fact, here we go, Star Wars bag.
Oh no.
That's okay. I will convert you to the Force.
Yeah. I guess I'll pass it over to you, Tracy.
Okay, I'm sorry to be late, but I was asked to attend the live stream for the Juneteenth keynote that was with at the CSU. And it was Dr. Sean Harper from USC and their diversity, their institute that oversees diversity, equity, and whatnot. So it was really inspiring and good information. So, okay, Tracy Fleming, she, hers, Sonoma State, and what is one of your most controversial opinions, non-political? Oh my gosh. I think pineapple should be on pizza. Okay, Sydney, we're on the same page. Okay, and then I'm sorry, I don't know who to go to next, Ashley or Priscilla, who hasn't spoken.
Actually, Ashley and I haven't spoken, so I'll just go ahead and take it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. My name's Priscilla. My pronouns are she, her. I am affiliated with all the campuses. I work at Valor, the TA provider. And my most controversial opinion, I don't share it very often because it's kind of grim and people don't like it, but I think Robin Williams was kind of obnoxious. I like a lot of his movies, but in interviews and stuff, it's just like a lot. It's a lot for me. So I will go ahead and pass to Ashley.
Oh my gosh, you come up with some good icebreakers, Priscilla. Hi everyone, Ashley Klein Jimenez. I use she, her pronouns with Valor. So I do not like miniature things. Like I actually hate them. They terrify me. So people love to send me miniature things, tag me in like the videos. There was that one a couple years ago with like a chef making like tiny food for a hamster. Gave me nightmares. I just like, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's cute. I can't. So there you have it. Let's see. I am going to pass to Yanette.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everyone. My name is Yanette Cortez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a project associate with Not Alone at the Beach at Cal State Long Beach. I have a couple of controversial food opinions. I think candy corn is disgusting, along with black licorice and black olives. I can't. And I'm gonna popcorn it to Shayna. I don't know if you've gone.
I haven't, and I popped in late. Hi, everybody. I'm Shayna. And this is very controversial, and I get made fun of it for it. I hate cilantro. I think it tastes like dirty soap. I can't get into it. And I came in late, so I'm not entirely sure who's gone. I'm gonna popcorn to Diana. Have you gone?
No, I haven't.
Perfect.
I haven't. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana, and I'm at Rio Hondo College. I don't know if I have a funny. I really liked all the ones y'all shared right now. I was just nodding a little here and there, but I don't really know. I don't really know if I have a controversial. I'm thinking. Sorry, I don't think I was like the most prepared for this one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm married. I don't know. I think I'll have to come back, but I'm glad to introduce myself. Let me see who. Yeah, I really don't know who else is. Can I popcorn? Thank you. I don't know how else I can popcorn. There, Angel.
Hi everyone. My name is Angel Gray, pronounced she, her, hers. I am with Cerritos College, and a controversial opinion. It took me a minute to think of this. I was like, I couldn't think of any off the top of my head, at least that are non-political. But I came up with one. I don't think blue eyes are pretty. Everyone always thinks blue eyes are just the most gorgeous eyes that anybody can have. And I don't agree. And everyone, anytime someone points it out, they're like, oh my God, they have the most gorgeous eyes. And I'll turn around and it's always blue. I don't think blue eyes are pretty. I love green eyes. They're so rare. And I just think, I just love green eyes. But blue eyes, I don't think they're pretty.
That's fair. And did you introduce yourself, Angel? I can't remember.
I did. Pronounced she, her, hers, and with Cerritos College.
Thank you. And I think the only person we have left, I think, is Linda, one of our guest speakers.
Yes, hi everyone. I am Linda. Honey, it's Case. Linda is fine. She and her pronouns. I love this question. I'm always in the mood for a hot take, especially about food. This is really great. I think mine is going to be that all food is just as good, if not better, if you make it spicy. I put this on my dating profile. It really divides the pack. And I will throw down for this, like ice cream, cereal, cookies, absolutely. Alexis, if you're not into cinnamon, this is going to be a tricky sell. But I do, yeah, I'm just always trying to add some heat, add some spice.
What do you add to cereal besides, I mean, cinnamon I don't think is like spicy, but what do you add to cereal that makes it spicy? Just tahini to everything?
I think cinnamon is a good vehicle for like cayenne pepper, right? So if you have like some cereal, some cinnamon, some cayenne pepper, they kind of make friend. You could add like some chocolate, some cocoa in there.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna try some cinnamon toast crunch with cayenne pepper. That doesn't sound bad. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for sharing all of your hot takes and your controversial opinions. There were some really great ones in there. Okay, so just a reminder, our monthly campus cohort meetings. Next month in July, we're going to have speakers, Dr. Shelley Erickson from CSULB and Dr. Brenda K. Ingram from USC, and they will be sharing their experience of going through the audit visit with Cal OES. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you come. We will also have the recording available, and let us know if you get contacted by Cal OES. If you have a site visit or an audit, or they mention anything like that to you, please let us know so we can give you a little bit of the insight. And then just a reminder, make sure you are signed up for the hub and our cohort listserv, as well as the monthly campus cohort meetings. If you are not on any of those, please feel free to send me an email and I will make sure that you are signed up. Or if you have any new colleagues who should be attending these meetings, please send their information along as well. And then for the hub, just please make sure that you're signed up with your work email so that we know to give you approval. And then another reminder, we have our statewide conference coming up. It'll be August 11th and 12th, and it'll be in Anaheim. A lot of you are affiliated with a rape crisis center, and so you may be able to get a discount for membership, or a membership discount on admission for the statewide conference. And then reminder, we just had our first 2 sessions for the campus summer series. We should have those recordings up. The first one should be up this week, and then the second one that just happened yesterday should be up next week. And then we also have next week, we have on Wednesday restorative justice, and then the following week engaging campus athletes in sexual violence prevention. So please make sure you're signed up for those. Ashley is going to go ahead and pop the links for the upcoming ones in the chat. And then I am going to go ahead and turn it over to our speakers. If you weren't here for the intro, we have a couple folks joining us to go over the campus human trafficking toolkit that we talked to you all about last month. And then they're going to give just a very brief overview of campus culture change through horticulture. And I will stop sharing for a moment because I need to make Chris a co-host, which I didn't do when you joined because we were chatting. So thanks for your patience, y'all.
Almost there. All right. Hi, y'all. I'm gonna get our screens up and I'm gonna turn it over to Linda, but I know that I'm the one that was sharing, so here you go.
Great. Hey, y'all. We already had a chance to introduce ourselves. I work at the North Carolina Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So we are an inclusive statewide alliance working to end sexual violence through education, advocacy, and legislation. We are the kind of North Carolina version of Valor. And we strive to use a social justice framework from a strong intersectional perspective. We really believe that by centering our work around marginalized communities, everyone is served. And I will pass it back to Chris to introduce themselves.
So I am with the National Survivor Network, and we are a values-based, survivor-led professional network for survivors of human trafficking who are either already engaged in movement leadership or are wanting to get engaged using a public health, human rights, and harm reduction approach. And so the Campus Human Trafficking Toolkit came about while I was actually at NC CASA in Linda's role. So we had a student who was interested in working with us for her MPH practicum. And honestly, we had identified a gap that a lot of the ways that the anti-trafficking movement was providing frameworks for campuses was very much invested in a heavily carceral approach. And as such, didn't always resonate for a lot of the survivors we were seeing and working with. And so we wanted to see what it would look like to bring a different lens to it. So trying to come up with what solutions could be for campus human trafficking prevention and response that really acknowledge the outer layer of prevention, that look at things like social and economic context in which it happens, and that also were really respectful of the role of consent. Because consent and bodily autonomy are fundamental parts of a sexual violence framework, but there wasn't as much dialogue about them in some of the human trafficking training and toolkits we were seeing. And I'll turn it back over to Linda.
Great. Yes. And so I'm so grateful to Chris and the folks who co-authored this toolkit with them, Hadass Barron and Brittany Thomas. And I'm really thrilled and honored to get to be in this role now, to be able to share this toolkit out and disseminate it with folks. And there's lots of juicy and important things in the toolkit. I put the link to the toolkit in the chat box, and it looks like there's some other resources from us in there, but this is kind of what's in the toolkit. There's some content around human trafficking myths and facts. There's content that really identifies the overlap between sexual and domestic violence and human trafficking. It lays out unique concerns for LGBTQ+ students, for immigrants or undocumented students, and for community colleges. There's also some really great content in there around choice points, which we're going to talk about in a little more depth in just a moment. It talks about industries and trades in which human trafficking can occur, and there's content in there related to prevention, direct services, and also policy and protocol, and how all of these pieces can really work to prevent and, if needed, respond to human trafficking for colleges and universities. Next slide. So Chris and I are going to highlight a couple of the unique concepts that you will find in this toolkit. And the first is choice points. So this concept really shifts us from focusing on the exploitation of human trafficking to really notice the context in which that trafficking is happening. So it really works to shift the burden off of the individual victim or survivor to prevent themselves from getting trafficked, and refocuses that burden more appropriately onto systems and institutions, including colleges and universities, to make sure that they have supports and policies in place to prevent the context that can create vulnerability for exploitation. Next slide. So the idea here behind these choice points is that when a student's status or support changes, colleges and universities have the opportunity, and we would argue a choice, to provide support and have policies that can ease transitions and decrease vulnerability to exploitative and precarious labor. When we were prepping for this, Chris said something that I think is really important, which is that students' entire infrastructure and safety oftentimes can come from their college and university. And this is a great and beautiful and incredible thing, and can also create a major vulnerability, especially for students who are historically marginalized, who might depend on that infrastructure. And so when colleges and universities remove that infrastructure, the question is, how can they really work to reduce the harm to students? Because students are going to need to find a way to get their needs met. And for marginalized students without the privilege of a safety net, this can be really hard and scary and frightening. And in particular, for students who might be teens or young adults, they may just be beginning to learn independent decision-making and figuring these things out. And these are big things to figure out by yourself. So the question here is really, how can colleges and universities create the conditions that students are able to get their needs met in a safe way? Next slide. So in summary, choice points is when a student's status or support changes, increasing vulnerability to exploitation. So some possible examples of these is when their application for services is rejected. So things like financial aid, housing, meal plan, mental health care, other health care, etc. When a student withdraws from school or is expelled, when they lose their scholarship or funding or fellowship, or when their immigration visa is not renewed. Chris, given our time, how are you feeling about this discussion? Are you okay to go into it?
You want to just kind of at the end, we can open it all up for Q&A. Is that okay?
Okay, so hold this until later.
Just kind of like at the end, see where they want to lean into with the discussion.
Okay, great. So when we wrap up, we will offer these questions to you all to think a little bit more deeply about choice points you might be able to identify in your institution, and to have a conversation about what it would look like to provide support and policies for students during these choice points. So plant that seed and we'll come back to it at the end. And if there's time, we will dig into this discussion. But before I pass this back to Chris, I'll pause to see if there are any comments, questions, feedback about this idea of choice points.
That I'm kind of thinking about right now is that some of like these examples of a student status or support changing, those could have come out of experiencing either sexual violence or domestic violence. So it almost seems like when we're working with students who have experienced violence, now, you know, like we know they're at an increased risk for something like human trafficking. And so this makes it really clear to me. So I just want to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone, I know I was the one that was being conscious of time, Linda, I'm bad, but I'm thinking about what someone said in the last time when we trained with NAFTA last week. Someone mentioned, oh yeah, during COVID, our students lost their meal plans and the food pantry closed down. And so we did X, Y, and Z to make sure they knew where to get food. And that was a really insightful thing, like COVID made this really visible, but the fact is every time a student loses their scholarship, that's their reality and they need those resources, right? So what would it look like to like institutionalize providing that information at a choice point? Were there other questions or comments? I don't want to. Okay. So the other thing that we offered in here, and there's a lot of other stuff in the toolkit, but the choice points and the questions that we offered for each industry were unique things that aren't available in other anti-trafficking resources. One of the things that we consistently hear from survivors is sometimes red flags can feel like they really don't see you as a person, right? You have X, Y, and Z red flags, therefore we're concerned about trafficking, and so we filter you into this next part of our flow chart or our script where we do these screenings, you know, like it feels like they're bypassing relationships. It often misses a lot of important context. So someone could have 3 red flags for trafficking and have a completely different experience that's not trafficking at all, and you only find that out through conversation with them. And we need to remember that some of the interventions that we have in place because of the way the anti-trafficking system is set up, some of those systems immediately funnel people into relationships with systems that they may not feel comfortable in or that they may be scared of. So it's not a net neutral, right? Referring someone, I know that a lot of the training for colleges is like, if you see X, Y, and Z on the red flags, call campus police. But sometimes those systems are scary. So it's worth having those conversations first, right? It's worth having those relationship building conversations to find out the context before making that connection. The other thing that we hear a lot from survivors of trafficking is that because there are some dynamics that are a little different in the trafficking sector than they are in the anti-sexual violence movement. But we hear a lot that red flags feel extractive and objectifying because the purpose of getting your red flags to a survivor can often feel like you're doing it just so you can put a label on them, right? The purpose of me doing the screening is so I can label the kind of violence you had, which doesn't do anything to have that person feel like you're trying to address their needs. So we, a more person-centered approach, we advocate for. It builds relationships. It respects their agency and autonomy. We all know in our anti-sexual violence work that we work with clients all the time who make choices that we have problems with. Personally, all of us have had the experience of talking to other survivors and they say things that they do or don't want. Having a client decline medical care when you feel like they need it. Like, these are all things that survivors of all kinds of violence do. And yet we still want to honor their agency and autonomy. And we want to be trauma informed. For those of you who aren't familiar with the PAIR toolkit, or the PAIR tool, PEARR, that's a really beautiful tool because it's less focused on screening and it's more focused on creating the conditions that allow for disclosure. So the PAIR tool, you provide someone with privacy, you give them some education, is the E. Now that I've started naming them, I'm not going to remember what all the letters are. But you give them some education about what the situation is. Here's some education. Some people find such and such. This thing is called trafficking. And then you ask, does any of this sound like that resonates for you? Do you have any more questions? And then you respect and respond. So you respect their answer. If they say no, you respect it because that's respecting their autonomy and their agency. And then if they say, yeah, I'm actually kind of concerned about that. Whatever form of labor that they're in. And so we use some of the models that are listed in Polaris's business models for trafficking, where it identifies different industries or forms of labor in which trafficking can occur. And so for each of these, instead of doing red flags, we have questions. And all of these questions, if you look through them, they really look at how much autonomy does the student have over their own work. Do they feel safe, right? Are they posting their own content, or is someone else posting it for them? Do they receive their own payments, or does someone else collect them? And then instead of screening and red flags, you could have the conversation with the student and say, well, do you know how that platform protects your private information? Do they seem like they're consistent in that? Is that what you've heard, that they're consistent in protecting your privacy? Like, you can walk them through, because then you're mentoring them on the kinds of considerations that will help them regain more autonomy over their body and the way that they make income. Same thing with escort services and sugar babying, which we know has been all over the news as being really common in colleges, and a way that a lot of people use to sort of avoid debt or pay off debt or meet the difference between what their financial aid will provide and what they need. So again, we're helping consider not just, are there red flags for trafficking, but also, are they coordinating their own dates? Does someone else control the schedule? Is there a platform or service, and how much does it take? Do they feel comfortable clarifying and setting their own boundaries about what they do and don't consent to? Are they old enough in bars, strip clubs, and cantinas? And also with are they old enough to do the work? One piece of that is old enough to be a stripper, if you're working in that form of bar, because a minor engaged in the sex trades legally fits the definition of human trafficking. So you want to know that. But even things like, are you bartending before you're old enough? Because there's a good chance that if there's a bar that's lax about whether or not someone's old enough to bartend legally in that state, there might be other things that they're not being thoughtful about too. We also have, let's see here, restaurants and food services. So thinking about things like, is the student's movement at work restricted or limited? Do they get breaks? Do the hours they're working align with labor laws? Because sometimes if are they getting paid overtime if they work more hours? Or is this a situation, are they categorized as an employee, right? A lot of times people will, it's just so normalized in our culture to mess with someone's schedule to keep from having to count them as a certain kind of employee. And these can be red flags for trafficking, but you would not know just by looking at a list. You have to have a conversation with the student. Same thing with outdoor solicitation of sexual services. We have to ask ourselves things like, are they working for someone else? Do they have to give their money away to someone? A big question is, would you feel safe leaving? What do you think might happen if you wanted to leave? Would you feel safe leaving? And sometimes the answer is, I wouldn't feel safe. There's someone controlling me. But sometimes the answer is no, because then I'd be homeless. That's a different kind of safe, right? And so if the answer is no, because I'd be homeless, this is how I keep from being homeless, well, then that identifies a need, right? That doesn't identify something, that identifies a need. We can start helping that person find resources to meet. So again, just remembering our goal isn't just to look at a checklist. Screening tools are really useful, but screening tools should be brought in as needed. The goal of screening should never be just identifying trafficking survivors. For the label, for the statistics, for the demographics, we don't do that with sexual violence or domestic violence clients, right? We don't go through a screening tool to help them determine whether or not they were sexually assaulted before we provide them with services to try to meet their needs. So we need to bring that same lens into the way we approach trafficking. And then if we, after conversations and needs assessments and building trust, start to see that there's something going on, we can ask the student if they're interested in completing a screening with you to figure out what services might be available.
Great. So to wrap up, we want to leave you with a couple of calls to action of how you could potentially use this toolkit. And so one is to use this toolkit to kind of go a little bit deeper, to think about some of these choice points, map out choice points, and determine how to develop protocols to really embed wraparound supports into some of these choice points. We also encourage you to use this toolkit to create a primary prevention strategy across the social ecological model to prevent human trafficking on college and university campuses. And this toolkit can also be really useful to help folks expand their anti-violence prevention and response protocols and policies to ensure that they're also relevant to anti-human trafficking. Next slide, Chris. Wonderful. And so that wraps us up for the moment. And so Chris and I will put our contact information into the chat box. You're welcome to reach out to us. And I think we can open it up at this time for thoughts, questions, discussion.
I just want to thank you both for sharing about the toolkit. I don't know that we haven't spent a lot of time or any time really in this group talking about human trafficking on campus. And so this may be kind of like an entry point for us to dig deeper. And so just really appreciate you sharing some of these resources and some of like the tools. I wrote them down, the PAIR tool. And so, yeah, I don't know if others are feeling that way. I think that, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm interested in hearing from some of y'all on campus. Like, is this something that is being discussed in the state?
We, for the last 2 Januaries, because January is National Stalking Month, Awareness Month, we've had campus speakers come on board, and her name is flying out of my head. We actually have an alumni that is an amazing recovery story and strength. Actually, she should be dead. And she was incarcerated and she's getting her master's. And then there's also another woman that's going through the program here at Sonoma State. And Sydney didn't, Chris, the head of Verity, she had that documentary film that just premiered. And I can get all of those names and things for you and forward them to you. Sonoma County has a kind of a significant problem with human trafficking, and obviously it sounds like it's everywhere, but it is a topic that we've presented on twice. And then just a kind of a sidebar, a mom, because we publish it out, it's through our CCR, that's part of this grant. With our community outreach, we publish it, promote it outside of just the campus group. So this mom saw it through one of the Park and Recs or something like that, and she's been having a little trouble with her daughter. And so it was kind of a scared straight thing that she had her 12-year-old daughter come to this talk, and the daughter spoke, and it was like, gosh, maybe we helped one, and maybe she'll tell friends and get the resources out there to know what it is when you might not know that you're in it. So that presentation that was the first presentation you did with the on stalking, I've bookmarked that because there were all these free toolkits, not collateral things, because getting things created sometimes on campus is hard. So I appreciate this, and Sydney and Susan and I will noodle on this afterwards, but thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing that, Tracy. It sounds like hopefully this is a helpful and relevant tool in lots of ways, and certainly there's lots of important needs around response. And I think something really neat about this toolkit is that it focuses on prevention and really calls us, and we have an opportunity, right, to shift from something we've so frequently done as preventionists to focus on this individual, like, I'm going to train you to keep yourself safe from violence. I'm going to train you to keep yourself safe from trafficking. And I think this toolkit does a great job of calling us to shift, to really think about the economic and social supports that create the context that no matter what an individual might be moving through, they have the economic and social supports from their college, their university, their families, their communities, to have access to lots of, to have access to what they need to be able to navigate situations.
Can y'all hear me? My computer. Okay, good. I keep freezing. I have a question. What, if any, like policy changes have you all seen come from some of the campuses that are working with the toolkit and starting to implement it?
I know Linda can probably answer this better than I can, but I just wanted to be really clear that it just came out. Y'all are on the front end, so this is an opportunity for y'all to kind of figure out what you might do. I think with the choice points is one of the biggest things. One thing I just want to keep bringing up is, like, students don't just get trafficked out of the blue. There's almost always something that's a change in their economic support that makes them more vulnerable. It doesn't matter how good of a groomer someone is, unless there's an economic need or benefit for a college age person, right? They're going to be so much less vulnerable if we can make sure that they have their structures. So kind of shifting, I know in our anti-sexual violence work, we've had so many conversations about, like, not using self-defense approaches to, and I mean that broadly and metaphorically. Like, we don't train people on how to not get raped, and that we still give safety information and helpful information to make good choices. And we just don't see that. That hasn't historically been the way the trafficking movement has done it. So one of the policy shifts I would love to see is a really careful look at like where are the points where students lose their housing in a student who's with us. Even with community colleges, if they're not living on campus, would you know if a student was homeless? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a choice point. How would you find out if they don't live on campus? When do they lose their scholarships? Right? A lot of people who were trafficked while in college, it came after losing their scholarship, losing family support, right? There's something that happens. And so colleges have a unique opportunity. We know you can't fix it all. None of us have money falling out of our bank accounts, but think about what you did to provide students with support during COVID the best you could and kind of incorporate those into the transitions. So I would love if y'all are able to implement those for you to report back to Linda to kind of discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for that policy idea. I think this is a conversation that will definitely continue, and we'll keep you all posted and updated. I know that in California, well, not just in California, but there's been a lot of attention from the community college chancellor's office on students with housing and food insecurity. And so I've thought for years, like there has to be a way for us to, we know that these issues are connected. We know that that's a risk factor for experiencing sexual violence and intimate partner violence and human trafficking. And so how do we kind of leverage that attention to also, be a part of addressing violence and trafficking? So appreciate that policy piece. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions from folks? Well, Chris and Linda, I know we really wanted to highlight this toolkit, and I hope that I really encourage everyone to go look at it, download it, look at it. But I know that there's some other tools and resources from NC CASA around campus sexual violence, and so just wanted to give you a little space to highlight any of those as well.
Yeah, I can start off, and Chris, you can follow behind. I'm just putting in the chat box for some of the discussion questions that we didn't get to. These can help frame if y'all want to have future conversations around the toolkit or around anti-human trafficking on college and university campuses. These can be juicy things to dig into to really think about, like, what are some of those policy changes at my institution? What's low-hanging fruit? What's high-hanging fruit? How does this fit in with our anti-sexual violence strategic plans and whatnot? And yes, I can begin sharing a little bit about our other toolkit, which I'll put in the chat box. This is called Campus Culture Change Through Horticulture, a holistic approach to sexual violence prevention and response. So this was written by Chris and one of our former NC CASA interns who really championed this project. And the idea here is that by this toolkit will help folks build the skills to build communities and shift norms to prevent sexual violence through campus community gardens. And so it's highly likely that you can increase protective factors against sexual violence by providing spaces for personal growth and healing through connection to nature. And so this toolkit really highlights how campus community gardens could be a part of your primary sexual violence prevention efforts, as well as spaces for survivor support groups. So really looking at kind of a continuum of prevention and how this can fit in. Chris, what other context would you like to add to this?
Yeah.
This one was mostly written by the intern. So she went to UNC and they have an edible campus program where they partner with the North Carolina Botanical Gardens and have 3 different community gardens around campus. And so she was thinking, how wonderful would it be to have like some of the prevention work take place in the context of like community building garden activities, so that in addition, like, right, I'm seeing the survivor support group. Yes, we were super excited about that. And I know some of those happen, but also what if we did prevention activities? So what would it look like to kind of like use the garden as an opportunity to model nonviolent problem solving skills and collaboration, and to build community for isolated students to feel like they have connection and have that be an intentional part of your broader campus violence prevention programming? What would a partnership between, if you're at a community college that maybe has an agriculture program or an extension program that has a garden, what would that look like to have a partnership between them and your campus violence program to do like response, but also intentional prevention work in that setting? And so there's some activities, some sample activities, some ideas for partnerships. It's a pretty neat one. Yeah, we had original art drawn for it. I actually commissioned an artist to do the art.
I love this toolkit so much because it's, you know, as someone who is really focused a lot of my day on prevention, seeing prevention move away from educating people, you know, in like traditional classroom spaces and like educational sessions to something like greening or doing a garden is so exciting. There's so many benefits that can come from a project like this beyond violence prevention, which, I mean, that's obviously what our hope is, but it's really, really exciting. And so I was so excited when I saw this document. And there is, you know, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, there is research that has shown that environments where there's more greenery has been correlated to decreases in intimate partner violence. And so there's not a ton, but there's some compelling evidence there. And so I am very excited about this. Thank you for highlighting it. Yeah. Anyone have any questions about this tool? Well, if things come up, Linda and Chris will be sure to connect with you both and just let you know what the conversation is. I think we'll probably spend our meeting next month just kind of talking about the what you brought here today. I know that folks are having to sign off, so Priscilla, I'll pass it back to you. But again, thank you so much, Chris and Linda, and thank you all for being here and receiving this information.
All right, we'll see if my internet holds up for the next 60 seconds. But yeah, thank you so much, Chris and Linda. This has provided so much food for thought for us. And I think these are areas that we really haven't gone over or covered at all in our meetings. And I think that, you know, the next couple months we can really dive into some of this and see if it's something that some of our campuses can work towards, or see if they can, you know, implement parts of it. So I really appreciate you both being here and sharing these kits with us. So thank you all, everyone. If you have questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, we'll see you next month, and happy Pride. Bye, everyone.